Ready? Kelly, are we ready? Okay.
Recording in progress.
Welcome, everybody, to the regular Board of Aldermen meeting for September 18th, 2023. Would everybody please join with me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Now, Alderman Plufka.
Here.
Alderwoman Tice. Here. Alderman Weggie, absent. Alderwoman Sims.
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Here.
Alderman Gould.
Here.
Alderwoman Harder.
Here.
Alderman Erger.
Here.
7 of 8 members are present.
Thank you. Next up is the agenda approval. Any changes to the agenda? Alderman Gould? Nope. Okay. Any objection to approving the same by acclamation? Seeing none, will be so approved. Brings us down to announcements, appointments, proclamations, and recognitions. We have none. Citizen comments, item 5. Anybody in the public care to address the board? Now is the time to do so. You'll be given up to 3 minutes. All we ask is that you identify yourself by name and address. Seeing none, we'll move down to mayor and alderman reports. First up is the mayor report. I have just a couple. First is I'd like to congratulate our staff, specifically or particularly our Parks and Recreation and Public Works, for what was a fantastic Brentwood Days event this past weekend. Eric is to be commended once again for having terrific weather. I don't know how he does it. But again, for those people who are watching, I know some people are saying, why do we do it on the third weekend in September? And Eric told me years ago, and that is because the Farmer's Almanac says you have the best likelihood, or the greatest likelihood of good weather the third weekend in September, which is why all the other communities also do their events the third weekend in September. So once we start deviating from that date, then we're looking at possibly having bad weather. There's no guarantee it will be good on the third weekend, but in terms of probabilities, that is the best weekend to have it. The parade was very well attended. I think we need to increase the candy budget for next year. 45 bags, I'm told, and still we ran out. As we got toward the end of it, I was being very judicious with throwing out the candy, and still I ran out. I have heard complaints about the size of the crowd, and I've received a few emails, I've received a few phone calls about that, and you know, it's a double-edged sword. When you have large crowds, that's a good thing when you're holding an event, because that ensures you're going to have vendors. You know, food vendors and drink vendors do not want to show up if they're not going to get any business. We've seen that before with other city events that we had, and I don't recall how many food vendors we had last year. It may have just been one, and I know we had 4 last year, I'm being told, but one of them was the Booster high school booster organization, and they were so busy they ran out of food last year. This year, I think we had more food vendors. And when you have more people showing up, you're going to have more vendors showing up. So it's necessary to have the crowds. However, the large crowds also prevented some people from enjoying themselves because of the lines that come with that. The lines waiting for food, for drinks, and for the rides. So I have responded to those who've reached out to me that we'll look at to see what we can do to continue to make this better. In fact, I'm having a meeting tomorrow morning with staff, both chiefs of the police and fire department, with our director of Parks and Recreation, with our city administrator, to kind of debrief and see what we did right, see what we can do better to improve the experience for everybody in attendance. The last thing is we have coffee with the mayor next Thursday, not this coming Thursday. So that's it for the mayor's report. Alderman Plufka.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to say how much we enjoyed the parade on Saturday. The weather was fantastic. Thank you to Alderwoman Tice and for her helping us put together a really fun float, and we really had a good time. And I will just add Ava, Claire, Bernadette, and Mary's criticism of the fact that there was not near enough candy. Anyway, it was wonderful, and thank you. So
Those are your grandchildren.
those are my grandchildren.
Okay.
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice.
So I will echo the thanks to the staff. It was a really great event, and to go along with our theme of our parade vehicle, we were the Brentwood Park bird watchers, and I can't tell you the number of people who actually thought that there was a bird watching club. So Eric, just so you are aware, I think there is interest out there for bird watching. So you might want to take that into account when you think about programming for next year.
Alderwoman Sims.
Thank you. I too echo the sentiment. Brentwood Days comes but once a year, and it was a wonderful time. I always enjoy it. Also, what comes but once a year is budget season for Ways and Means, and we have scheduled a series of special meetings to review the budget coming up. I will note we have our first special meeting next week at 9/27 at 5 p.m. We're not going to be looking at the budget at that point. We'll be looking at the audit for 2022. But you're welcome to attend that one as well. And then subsequently to that, we have a special meeting on 10/3. I'll note too that our regularly scheduled meeting, which would have been Thursday, October 5th, is not going to occur. That'll be 10/3, and then 10/18. 10/26, 11/2, and 11/16. And for those of you who have had the joy and pleasure of me being chair of Ways and Means, the way I think has been a process that has worked. We break up the budget by department. I defer to Bola in terms of identifying which departments go well together. So it's not sensory overload in terms of covering all subject matters in one night, and I think not all subject matters necessarily need the same amount of attention. I know I know efforts will be made to get the agendas out there so that you can see which departments will be up on a particular evening. As I've done in past years, I would invite members of the board to submit any questions that we can address at the meetings themselves, and certainly I invite you all to attend every single one of those special meetings, but either virtually or in person, and I would certainly recognize you at the meeting if you had specific questions. The goal being that by the time the proposed budget comes to the full board for consideration, we will have left no stone unturned. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Gould.
Yes, the Communications Committee meeting that was scheduled for tomorrow unfortunately needed to be canceled. We will pick that up next month.
Thank you. Alderman Lockmuller.
Our Ward 3 meeting is next Tuesday, the 26th. Remember that our usual time at 6:30 has been moved to 7. Also like to thank staff on a great Brentwood's Days. Also like to thank a resident, Scott Brent, who always comes through with his 67 Falcon convertible, and it's always a prayer that we make it to the end of the parade. So
It helps that it's downhill. Alderwoman Harder.
Right now I'd like to just take a minute to say thank you, especially to the mayor and to all the aldermen for welcoming myself and Alderman Erger. And a shout out to Bola and Kelly and everybody that's answered all our silly questions and just gave us the time and just made us feel very welcome. It makes us feel like we're at home and we're going to try to do our best. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Alderman Erger.
Yeah, I just want to echo Alderwoman Harder's words and then thank everybody for Brentwood Days as well. I enjoyed it with my nephew. And shout out to Susan, too, for putting us in the parade on such short notice. So thank you, guys.
She does a fantastic job every year. Thank you so much. Brings us down to the city administrator report. We have one item. That's the Brentwood Bound update.
Good evening. Craig Schlitter with Navigate Building Solutions. I'll be providing the Brentwood Bound update. Starting with construction costs, $579,025 was spent since the last Board of Aldermen meeting. Next is soft costs, $160,331.79 was spent on legal, design, project management, IT, and material testing fees. And the only other change, if you go to the categories of funding, there is a revision to the MoDOT Brentwood cost share that MoDOT's going to pay Union Pacific directly for the Brentwood share, which is $89,785. So therefore, the MoDOT Brentwood cost share has been reduced by that same amount. So the net benefit to Brentwood's the same. It's just an accounting way of how some of these groups are getting paid.
Okay, great. Any questions for Craig? Thanks, Craig.
Great, thanks.
Next up is the consent agenda. We have 3 items. Any requests to remove any of the items or any questions about any of the items? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder?
Yes.
Alderman Erger?
Yes.
Thank you. Brings us down to old business. First up is Bill number 6473. Can we get a second read by title only, please?
Excuse me, Bill number 6473, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance establishing a rate of property tax to be levied for the year 2023 for general municipal purposes, police and fire retirement fund, and public library purposes.
Chair would entertain a motion to perfect Bill number 6473 into ordinance form.
So moved, but I think it should say the year 2024 rather than 2023. Aren't we looking at next year's property tax numbers, or no?
It is this year's
Oh, sorry, okay,
tax with next year's revenue.
Sorry, got it. Oh, so
So we had the
move
motion.
approval for bill number
Okay.
6473.
All right. Any discussion? Okay.
You should have had a brief update to board docs about 4:44 this afternoon. The St. Louis County Assessor indicated that they had an error on their part and they were going to update the post BOEs and rerun their logs. Not giving any type of an indication as to whether or not there was an impact or not an impact. So I don't know if the current numbers in front of you will change or not change. They actually didn't give us any sort of.
And it's countywide.
It is
correct?
countywide, that is correct.
Unique to Brentwood.
It is not unique to Brentwood, that is correct.
Okay, so we're going to go forward with the vote on this motion, but if we find out that there is a change, then we will have to call another meeting before the end of this month. So we're kind of hoping that there will not be a change to these numbers. Everybody understand that? So again, if once Michelle hears back from the county tomorrow, hopefully, and hopefully there's no changes to these numbers, but if there is, then we'll have to have a special meeting. We'll do that by Zoom. Okay, so with that, no further discussion. Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder?
Yes.
Alderman Erger?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, Bill number 6473 will become ordinance number 5103.
Great, thank you. And that brings us to the second item under old business, and that is Bill number 6474. Mr. City Attorney, are we doing an amendment, or how are we handling that?
Mayor, I have circulated almost as late as the county auditor, assessor, a suggested revisions to the bill for your consideration. And I can go through those with you. They're, I think, fairly well identified in the material that you've received. The bill that you received late today, and that fault lies exclusively with me, not with Ms. Kelly, is that to avoid some circumstances where, for instance, some of the language even before this amendment said, if approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Aldermen, that almost gives the P&Z veto power over the Board of Aldermen. So we want to avoid expressions like that. Yes, they have a review responsibility, but the discretion is with the Board of Aldermen to approve. So we've cleaned up that kind of language and talked about referring it to P and Z for consideration and report, but where previously some of the language in this section seemed to indicate that had to be approved by both bodies, that would be inappropriate allocation of authority. Likewise, where it says that there has to be proof that that parking can be shared, we've added terminology to the satisfaction of the Board of Aldermen. Not somebody said, well, I came in, there's proof, you have to approve it. It is proof to the satisfaction of the board. So those are the technical language cleanups that we have suggested in the revised bill. I can go through them page by page if you would like. Otherwise, if you've had a chance to look at it and the summary is sufficient, a motion to amend Bill 6474 by the text of draft Bill 6474.1 would be in order.
Get a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Got a second by Alderman Lockmuller, motion made by Alderwoman Sims. Any discussion on that? Need a voice vote, roll call? Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So now we do a second read on 6474.1?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Bill number 6474.1 as amended, second reading and consideration for adoption, an ordinance to amend Article 4 off-street parking and loading regulations to update the required parking for certain uses to be consistent with current industry standards as well as other technical standards.
Can we get a motion to perfect Bill number 6474.1 into ordinance form?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder?
Yes.
Alderman Erger?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, Bill 6474 will become ordinance number 5104.
Thank you. Brings us down to the final item, which are citizen comments. Once again, if anybody in the public cares to address the board, now is the time to do so. We just ask you come to the podium and state your name and address. Seeing
No hands
none.
raised here.
I'm sorry?
There's no hands.
Okay.
raised.
Seeing that there is no more further business in front of this board, we are adjourned.